In a world gripped by shadows and silence, where truth is buried beneath politics, pride and powered two nations stand locked in a storm far older than we dare to admit. One, a land forged from ancient prophecy, Israel. The other, a civilization that once lit the cradle of humanity, Iran. Their story is not just about borders or bombs. It's about identity, about fear, about the relentless pursuit of dominance in a world that pretends to forget but always remembers. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the untold battle that has shaped decades of mistrust, manipulation, and mystery. Not the story you see on headlines, but the one written between the lines. The battle isn't just on the ground. It's in the hearts of people, the whispers of leaders, and the choices made in shadows. This is not a tale of villains and heroes. It's a warning, a revelation, and I invite you to listen. Historical tensions rooted in religious, cultural, and geopolitical rivalry, the silent cyber warfare and proxy battles shaping the Middle East. Global superpowers fueling the conflict behind closed doors. The media's role in distorting public perception and truth. The hidden cost of conflict on the common people of both nations. The tension between Israel and Iran is not a sudden conflict born of recent decades. It stretches back into the deep layers of history embedded in culture, religion, and identity. Iran, once the heart of the vast Persian Empire, has long held a position of influence in the Middle East. Its civilization predates many others, carrying with it a sense of historical pride and resilience. Israel, on the other hand, is a nation forged through ancient faith and reborn after centuries of diaspora, trauma, and survival. These two entities, with their deeply rooted identities, view each other not just political rivals, but as existential threats. This rivalry is not merely about borders or alliances. It is about who holds the moral high ground in a region that has witnessed empires rise and fall. Religion plays a powerful role in this divide. Iran, with its Shia Islamic foundation, sees itself as a protector of oppressed Muslims, often casting Israel as a symbol of Western domination and injustice. Israel, grounded in its Jewish identity and historical right to the land, views Iran's hostility as an echo of ancient enmity, a continuation of centuries of persecution. The narratives of both nations are shaped by survival. One from the ashes of the Holocaust, the other from a revolution that sought to break the chains of colonial influence. Geopolitically, their conflict is a chess match played over decades, with each side maneuvering to expand influence and protect its interests. Iran supports armed movements in Lebanon, Syria, and Gaza, groups that Israel considers direct threats. Israel, in turn, conducts covert operations, cyber attacks, and precision strikes to curb Iran's reach. But behind these strategies lie centuries of distrust, shaped by the legacy of empires, invasions, and resistance. This is not simply a war of ideology or territory. It is a collision of ancient identities. Each believes it has the right, the destiny, to shape the region's future. And in that belief, the past never truly dies. It only changes form. Beneath every speech, every strike, and every silence lies a history long buried but never forgotten, still fueling a conflict the world barely understands. While headlines often focus on open war and diplomatic tensions, the real battleground between Israel and Iran lies in the shadows. Covert operations, digital warfare, and proxy conflicts that rarely make it to the public eye. This silent war has become the defining feature of their rivalry, shaping the political dynamics of the Middle East without the need for direct confrontation. It is a calculated game of influence, power, and survival, where both nations use indirect means to damage and deter one another. Iran has mastered the use of proxy forces to expand its regional influence without deploying its own military directly. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Iraq and Syria serve as Iran's extended arms. Through funding, training, and weapons, Iran has built a network of actors that challenge Israeli interests on multiple fronts. These groups are not just military tools. They are ideological partners that carry Iran's message of resistance against Israel and the West. Every rocket launched, every tunnel dug is part of a broader strategy to surround Israel and erode its sense of security. In response, Israel has waged a relentless shadow campaign to limit Iran's reach. Through intelligence operations, sabotage missions, and targeted strikes in Syria, Iraq, and even Iran itself, Israel has made it clear that it will not allow Iran to solidify a military presence near its borders. Cyber warfare has become a particularly potent weapon in this battle. Israel's alleged role in the Stuxnet virus, which severely damaged Iran's nuclear centrifuges, signaled a new era in digital conflict, one where silent code can cause real-world devastation without a single bullet fired. This cyber conflict is ongoing. Each side probes the other's vulnerabilities, from power grids to infrastructure, trying to disrupt, delay, or demoralize. In this invisible war, the goal isn't just destruction. It's psychological pressure to make the enemy feel watched, vulnerable, uncertain. This battle is no longer fought only by soldiers. It is fought by hackers, spies, and operatives who move unseen. The danger lies in its ambiguity. Because this war remains largely hidden, it lacks the global scrutiny that might temper its escalation. Each action, each retaliation, pushes both nations closer to the edge, blurring the line between deterrence and provocation. And all the while, the world watches the surface, unaware of the storm brewing beneath. Behind the tension between Israel and Iran lies a complex web of global superpowers whose influence fuels and prolongs the conflict. While the struggle appears regional, its roots and reach extend far beyond the Middle East. Major world players, driven by their own interest in energy, arms, and geopolitical dominance, have used both nations as pawns in a broader game. The rivalry between Iran and Israel has become a mirror reflecting deeper global divisions. East versus West, democracy versus authoritarianism, secularism versus theocracy. The United States has long been Israel's most steadfast ally, providing military aid, the intelligence sharing, and diplomatic backing. This support has given Israel a strategic edge in the region, emboldening it to take preemptive actions to counter perceived Iranian threats. From advanced missile defense systems to cyber collaboration, this partnership ensures Israel remains a dominant force. But with that power comes responsibility, and the U.S.'s involvement also means that any Israeli action against Iran carries wider international implications. On the other side, Iran has cultivated strong ties with countries like Russia and China, who see value in supporting a counterbalance to American influence. Russia has provided Iran with advanced military technology and supports its role in Syria, while China has invested heavily in Iranian infrastructure and energy, circumventing Western sanctions. These relationships are not built on ideological alignment, but strategic necessity. Ferocity. For Russia and China, Iran serves as a useful ally in a region where Western presence remains strong and contested. This alignment of superpowers turns every local escalation into a potential flashpoint for broader conflict. When an Israeli missile hits a target in Syria, it's not just an act of defense. It sends ripples through Moscow. When Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz, it affects oil markets from New York to Beijing. Each move on this regional chessboard is scrutinized by capitals around the world, with stakes that go far beyond the immediate confrontation. Superpowers amplify the tension by supplying weapons, spreading narratives, and using economic leverage. They help maintain the status quo, not for peace, but for control. As long as Iran and Israel remain entangled in this rivalry, global powers will continue to profit from instability while publicly calling for calm. And so the cycle continues, not just between two nations, but under the silent orchestration of those who benefit most from the chaos. The media plays a powerful and often underestimated role in shaping the public's perception of the Israel-Iran conflict. In a world where attention is currency, narratives are constructed not necessarily to inform, but to influence. Headlines, sound bites, and selective imagery have the power to stir emotions, shape ideologies, and mobilize support or outrage within seconds. What the world believes about this conflict is not always a reflection of reality, but of what is chosen to be shown, emphasized, or ignored. Mainstream Western media often portrays Israel as a democratic stronghold in a volatile region, emphasizing its security concerns and existential threats. Iran, in contrast, is frequently depicted as an aggressive extremist regime with nuclear ambitions and hostile intentions. While there are truths embedded in both portrayals, the nuance is lost in the framing. The complexity of each nation's motives, the historical grievances, the civilian tolls, and the regional entanglements are often brushed aside for simplified narratives that fit established political lenses. In Iranian state media, Israel is portrayed as a symbol of oppression and occupation, a puppet of Western imperialism, especially the United States. These narratives are designed not only to rally domestic unity, but to bolster Iran's identity as a defender of the oppressed and an opponent of foreign domination. This portrayal fuels anti-Israel sentiment within Iran and across its allied groups in the region, just like their Western counterparts. These outlets carefully curate content to serve political ends rather than present a balanced view. Social media has added a new dimension. Raw, unfiltered, and emotionally charged. Images of bombings, protests, funerals, and destruction circulate within moments, often stripped of context, but packed with impact. It has become a battleground of its own, where truth and misinformation blend seamlessly, and where viral posts can escalate tensions faster than diplomacy can cool them down. This manipulation of perception has real consequences. It fuels public support for policies, justifies military actions, deepens divisions, and hinders dialogue. When narratives are designed to polarize rather than inform, peace becomes harder to imagine. The public becomes an audience to a carefully staged performance rather than witnesses to truth. Ultimately, the media is not just reporting on the conflict. It is part of the conflict. It shapes the lens through which we see, judge, and respond. And as long as the world continues to consume without questioning, the distortion of truth will remain one of the most powerful weapons in this silent war. Beneath the politics, the strategies, and the power plays between Israel and Iran, there are ordinary people, millions of them, who bear the true cost of a conflict they did not choose. They are not soldiers, politicians, or leaders. They are families trying to survive amid fear, propaganda, and instability. The hidden cost of this enduring rivalry is measured not in policy papers or territorial shifts, but in the psychological, emotional, and economic toll on the lives of innocent civilians in both nations. In Iran, decades of international sanctions driven by this ongoing tension have crippled the economy, devalued currency, and made everyday necessities scarce. Medical supplies, basic goods, and economic opportunity are no longer guaranteed. For young Iranians, the dream of a future filled with progress and freedom feels distant. Their voices, often silenced or ignored, speak of frustration, not just with foreign pressure, but with a government entangled in conflicts that prioritize ideology over livelihood. In Israel, the threat of rocket attacks, air raid sirens, and the constant state of alert have deeply affected the national psyche. Children grow up knowing the sound of sirens better than lullabies. Bomb shelters are built into homes and schools. Mandatory military service means nearly every family has a son or daughter prepared to fight. The fear is not imagined. It is rooted in a reality that repeats itself through cycles of tension and retaliation. And it weighs heavily, emotionally and psychologically, on generations who yearn for peace yet see none on the horizon. Across borders, people watch their leaders speak of strength and defiance while they themselves struggle with loss, grief, and uncertainty. The humanity of each side is drowned out by political noise. There are stories of Iranian students who want nothing more than to study abroad, of Israeli artists who dream of collaboration rather than confrontation, of parents in both lands who just want their children to live without fear. This human cost rarely makes headlines. It does not trend on social media, but it is the most enduring damage of all. The longer this conflict drags on, the deeper the wounds cut into the lives of those who are never invited to the negotiation table. Peace, if it is ever to come, must begin by recognizing their pain and choosing to protect lives over pride, people over politics. In the silence that follows the noise of missiles, the echoes of speeches, and the shadows of cyber attacks, there lies a truth the world has long refused to face. This is not just a battle between two nations. It is a mirror reflecting our collective failure to seek understanding over domination, dialogue over destruction. Israel and Iran stand on opposite ends of a divide carved not only by geography or politics, but by history, fear, and identity. And yet, on both sides of this divide, mothers still tuck in their children, students still chase dreams, and elders still pray for peace in languages shaped by centuries. The untold battle between these two nations is no longer confined to the borders of the Middle East. It has become a symbol of how far the world has drifted from empathy, how quickly we accept conflict as inevitable, and how easily narratives can be weaponized to justify endless retaliation. Superpowers play their games. Leaders speak of strength, but it is always the ordinary people who pay the price. This speech was never about choosing sides. It was never about labeling one as right and the other as wrong. It was about revealing what lies beneath the surface. The deeper currents that drive this confrontation, the unseen wounds, and the urgent need for humanity to rise above politics. Because if we do not change the script, if we do not challenge the silence, this battle will outlive us all. And so, let us remember that truth is not what is shouted the loudest, but what endures in the quiet hearts of those who still believe peace is possible. May we listen not to dominate, but to understand. May we speak not to condemn, but to heal. And may we finally have the courage to stop fighting shadows and start reaching for light.